It is my pleasure to open today's panel discussion on how to enhance youth participation in policymaking. We are gathered here today with a diverse panel representing both rural youth and policymakers, each bringing valuable insights and experiences to the table. So firstly, we have Hannah Downey. Hannah is a rural communities policy manager with the Scottish Government, where she contributes to the creation of policies aimed at fostering resilient and thriving rural and island communities in Scotland. She's passionate about promoting grassroots and community-led participation in policymaking, particularly where rural voices are not only heard, but also play an important role in shaping relevant policies. Welcome, Hannah. Next, we have Matías Rubio. Matías, you are originally from a city and you moved 6 years ago to a Spanish rural area. There, you identify some challenges in the village you're living in, especially affecting young people. And that made you co-founding La Bardal, which is a local association of youngsters seeking revitalization of their rural area through participatory governance projects. Matías, you're also a member of the board of the Youth Council of Cantabria, and you're part of the Advisory Council of Youth in the Council of Europe. Welcome, Matías. Next, let me introduce you to Carla González. Carla, she's a rural youth ambassador for Fundación Galicia, Europa. I don't see you yet on the panel, but I'm sure that you will arrive soon.
I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me. Maybe.
Yes,
okay.
I do.
And you cannot see me.
Yes, now I do. Now I do.
Perfect.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank
so,
you.
yes, I was saying. So you are rural youth ambassador for Fundación Galicia, Europa, who actively promotes the interests of rural youth in European projects. Your experience in European projects have equipped you with the skills needed to effectively communicate and advocate for the interests of rural youth. And you're particularly involved in, you have been particularly involved in two EU projects, which are Rural Youth Future and Rural Youth of Europe, where you serve as an ambassador. And so welcome, Carla. And last but not least, we can welcome Karen Vandeweghe, Deputy Head of Unit of the Unit B3, Youth and Volunteer Solidarity at the European Commission Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture. In particular, this unit coordinates the Erasmus Plus Youth and the European Solidarity Corps program, and set out the main orientation for EU youth policies, as well as the 2019-2027 European Union Youth Strategy. The unit was also responsible for the European Year of Youth 2022 implementation and its legacy. And with your extensive experience on EU youth policy, I'm sure that, Karen, you will bring a wealth of knowledge to our discussion today. So thank you, Karen. Thank you all for joining us. And well, let's start our discussion. So first, my first question is for you, actually, Karen. It's more about why are we here? Why is it important to involve youngsters in policy making, especially rural youth? Karen, you're muted, or I don't hear, at least I don't hear you. I still don't, but I don't know if it's only me or...
No, we don't hear you yet, Karen, unfortunately. Maybe it's the settings of your headphones, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. Okay, do you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, I changed my settings. We don't use a lot of Zoom, so I think that's why. So thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this panel debate. And it is key. I mean, it goes without saying that it's key that young people are involved in all policy decisions that affect them and that are important for the future. It's about ensuring that these policies reflect the needs and aspirations of the young people and also include their perspectives. And in fact, at European level, this promotion of young people's participation in society and also equipping them with the right skills to become engaged citizens, this is a key objective of the European Union Youth Strategy. And my colleague Babis explained European Union Youth Strategy this morning. So it's this cooperation framework in the field of youth. But it's also one of the objectives in the EU youth programs. So the EU youth programs, which are Erasmus Plus Youth and European Solidarity Corps, the main aims, it's really to offer young people youth organizations with opportunities to develop their skills and to be engaged in the policies that affect them. And so for young people in rural areas, particularly, involving them in policy making allows them as well to take ownership for the future development of their community and also to ensure that the policies at all levels rightly address the specific needs of rural communities, whether it's in education, health, or in employment. Then under the European Year of Youth, this was very important because one of the biggest expectations of young people during the European Year of Youth was that policymakers would listen more to the opinions of young people and would act upon it. We also saw this in a survey that we launched during the year. It was a Eurobarometer survey on youth and democracy where this wish was expressed. So there were many actions in the European Year of Youth to kind of act upon this. We organized policy dialogues. Also, we had quite a lot of, within the Commission, the call for ambassadors so that young people would be involved more at EU policy making. And then now, recently in January, we launched a communication on the European Year of Youth, where we kind of show our commitment to deliver further on these expectations. So there are two priority areas in this commitment. One is that young people should have a direct say in the policies that affect them. That's the first priority area in the communication. And the second is this mainstreaming, so that we should integrate the youth perspective in all relevant policy areas that concern them. And so in this communication, which was published in January 2024, there are 60 new actions under these priority areas. And for the Commission, this is really the roadmap, the blueprint ahead for empowering young people at EU policy or at EU level. And so in the first priority area where we say, okay, we want to give young people a stronger voice in EU policy making, there are 14 actions included where we aim to increase the engagement, the involvement, the participation of young people. And one of the most important novelties is this youth check process. So that at Commission level, we commit to set up a youth check and to ensure that the impact of policies on young people is systematically factored in when they design or when we design a policy. So this can be done through the use of the better regulation framework. So we have consultations, impact assessment, but also through the instruments of the youth strategy. And we saw this was a very concrete call from youth stakeholders, including the rural youth stakeholders, from the Parliament and from the Council, who all called upon the European Commission to adapt this youth test. There are other things in the communication. It's that we will continue the policy dialogues between commissioners and young people. This was set up during the European Year of Youth, and we already had two policy dialogues recently, one with Vice President Skinas and one with Commissioner Ivanova. And there was a representative of Rural Youth Europe who was there, who could also raise a bit the attention on rural youth issues during this policy debate with Vice President Skinas. And then we also aim to mobilize young people to really participate in all public consultations or targeted consultations at EU level on any policy initiatives. These consultations are published on the Have Your Say portal, and we will kind of see how we can use our tools like the European Youth Portal to mobilize further young people. Then finally, I just want to say two things because my time is up, is that first of all, under the EU strategy, we have the EU Youth Coordinator. So Biljana Sirakova is currently our EU Youth Coordinator, and this is an important role. So she's a contact person for organizations at European level, but also for raising awareness of youth issues among the Commission departments. And then lastly, we had recently our European Youth Week 2024, where we focused a lot on Voice Your Vision. So we encourage a lot young people to make their voice heard and to express their opinions.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's very nice to see that the European Commission is very much committed in enhancing youth participation, and in particular rural youth participation in policymaking, and that it's continuing its effort with initiative to reinforce and empower rural youth voices to be sure that their voices are being integrated. So thank you very much, Karen. And now I'm gonna ask Hannah. Hannah, thank you for being here. Welcome. Hannah, why did you decide to get involved in decision making on rural matters? And can you share with us a little bit about your journey and what inspires you to get involved?
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. I'm actually not originally from rural Scotland. I grew up near Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I've lived in various towns and cities, but I do have family there that live rurally. I'm also not technically young anymore, although I was whenever I first joined Scottish Government, which was in 2018. And luckily, that also coincided with Scottish Government's Year of Young People. So I was exposed to quite a lot of youth focused events in the kind of rural policy and rural networking space. And what has made me want to stay in my current policy area is the people that I have met through those events and through work. I'm really inspired on a daily basis by the resilience, the innovation, and the passion of the people that live and work in our rural and island places. Something else that I think has helped me to stay in the area that I'm in, and what makes me passionate about my work, is that my policy area and the team that I work in really promotes that bottom up grassroots ethos. And we put a lot of trust in our stakeholders that they are the ones that know what's best for their areas. We're just here to facilitate it. And that's the kind of work environment that I think aligns the most with my own personal values. Um, that being said, there are definitely some challenges that I've faced along the way in my past sort of 6 years with Scottish Government. And I think a lot of those revolve around harmful stereotypes. So, on a personal level, one of those harmful stereotypes is that as a young person myself, when I joined Scottish Government, not a lot of policy colleagues would take me seriously, or I experienced a lot of policy colleagues not taking me seriously because of my age. And I think what has helped me get through that is understanding that that often says an awful lot more about them than it does about myself. But also, I've been very lucky that I have had a lot of mentors, both within Scottish Government and external stakeholders, who have helped me build the confidence to not take those people seriously. Um, and more broadly, there are also some harmful stereotypes around what people hear whenever we talk about rural areas. So we hear terms like remote or fragile whenever we're describing rural areas. And there are some really harmful assumptions within that, that non-urban areas are less innovative or they're less progressive, which I think everybody on this call would agree absolutely isn't the case. And I think one of the ways of overcoming that is by having advocacy within Scottish Government from people who understand that that isn't the case.
Thank you very much, Hannah, for sharing your personal story, motivation, and also the challenges that you experience, and especially the one of not being taken seriously because of your age, which I believe it's shared by many youngsters in their careers. So thank you very much. for that. Matías, you're a new rural, young new rural. What motivated you to move from a city to a rural area and to set up La Bardal Association there?
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes, at least I do.
So, yes, thank you, Julie. So let me start with the, in Spain, we have a proverb or a say that is la pescadilla que se muerde la cola. And it means that a fish that bites its own tail. And we use it here when there is an incongruity in asking for two contrary things at the same time. Yeah. So let me start with this, and now I will present myself. My name is Matías. I was not born in a rural area, but since 6 years ago, I'm living here, and together with other young people who were born in the city, but also that they were born here in the village, we created a youth organization, an association, and it's called La Bardal. And although I do not have a lot of time in this intervention, but let me stop with what is a Bardal, because many people asking, what is La Bardal? Why did you pick this name? So here in our region, Bardal is a person who is a mess, who is untidy, who has no job, who still lives at home with their parents. And we do believe that certainly most of young people that we live in urban, but also in rural areas, we are Bardales. You know, maybe everyone, all the young people in this conference, then you are the exception, but we don't think so. But we also think that we are Bardales, but we are not Bardal by choice. And when I start the intervention by saying this proverb of la pescadilla que se muerde la cola, it makes sense to say it here because we see a contradiction here in the way we are approaching rural youth. Because in one hand, there is all the public institutions from the European Commission to the local authorities that are saying that we need young people to move to rural areas. We need young people to establish, to have a life in rural areas. That's in the one hand. But in the other hand, what we see is the access for housing for young people has alarming percentage. Our jobs are the most precarious one. And something that it might sound not very official, but that if there is no young people around you, it is very difficult to stay in the village. And we've been speaking these days that if you cannot have a beer on Friday evening with other young people and to enjoy the way you live, but also if you I don't know if you have Tinder, many of you will have, but sometimes we open Tinder and there is no people to flirt with in the nearby communities. So it's like we are calling that young people will move to rural areas, but we need to encourage like there is that we can have this social cohesion also, like these activities. And of course, we are not saying that the European Commission should help us on drinking more beers or to flirt with more young people. But sometimes we go to these super big, important topics. But the reality when you are here, when you are in the village, is like many people want to become farmers. Many young people doesn't want to become farmers, but we want to stay here. But sometimes it's the simple things that will let us stay in the village. So I truly believe that it is important that the European Commission is making this effort to put the young people in the decision-making process, but we really need to build this bridge between the local organization that we live here, that we are young people, that we are living here, that we know what are the real challenges that we are facing. So let's try to build this place that we can live here, and the rest it will come later. Yeah, and I will stop my intervention.
Thank you very much, Matías, for this. Indeed, that there are challenges that you can identify, and and then the involvement of young people in policymaking can be seen as a solution, also to change the narrative and the perception on rural youth. And for that, we also need the involvement of policymakers, which gives me the perfect transition for the first question that I have for Carla. Welcome, Carla. Hi, so Carla, based on your experience, what did you find effective to encourage rural youth to participate in policymaking, and how to keep them involved over time, particularly if they don't see themselves as natural participants or leader?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank you for letting me be part of this panel. It's such a great opportunity for me. So thank you so much. And now answering your question, I'll say that one of the most important things is to actually acknowledge and celebrate the contributions that rural youth give to policy making, either through maybe recognitions, diplomas, and so on, because this can help boost their confidence and motivation to continue engaging in this area. For example, in the project that I'm working on, Rural Youth of Europe, after every creative jam that we celebrated, each participant received a diploma. And as they participate in more, they are offered the opportunity to be mentors or even to give their own workshops, which of course means a lot for them. In other words, they grow personally and professionally, and their ambition to improve increases, as well as their involvement and engage in the project itself. So I do think that it's important to regularly seek their input, update them on progress, and provide them with opportunities for further engagement and learning. I also wanted to mention that we have the example of this girl, a participant that could develop her own business during the time she was involved in the project. And the support that she found in this encouraged her to become the leader of her own initiative. So I think this is also a great example of how the more we celebrate and support the contributions of young people from rural areas, as this case, the more progress we're making and the more young people become leader of this decision making. And lastly, on the other hand, I think, and now I'm talking from my experience, I could also notice that having young figures such as ambassadors that give visibility and transmit the commitment of the different European projects gives a big benefit to other young people that can identify and see that these places are reachable and that their opinion counts and we can be part of policymaking.
Thank you very much, Carla, for highlighting indeed having some examples and supporting youth participation can be indeed very benefiting to encourage and other youth also to take part and get involved. I see that we are running out of time, so I'll try to go straight to Matías. So Matías, with La Bardal's focus on community-led development, can you share quickly with us some approaches that you find effective in getting rural youth involved in decision-making at local level?
Yeah, so perfect. Thank you. Merci, Julie. And previous, I was speaking about the importance that it was for us to create this small organization, this small association that we are joining. So daily, there is no public transport. So then we go to the association and then we claim we go with other young people and we all share these not good conditions to establish here, not just like drinking beer or flirting or whatever, but there is no public transport, there is no housing, blah, blah. So here from La Bardal, we really believe that the process is like we let young people to create this small organization, these small and simple associations. So we don't go with super big projects that we will implement like these new cooperatives, blah, blah, but now we are working in helping other young people that they are alone, like there is small villages that they just have like 2 or 3 young people. So we go them and then we tell them we will help you on creating this small association. We will help you on getting this funding, small funding from the European Solidarity Corps, because the European Commission is supporting you. And I truly believe this is the way. If we want that young people is part of the decision-making process, we need to go together, because just one person to be part in the decision-making process, this will not work. We cannot express that, hey, in the decision-making process, you are not putting the priorities of the young people in the center. So first thing, let's join together. Second, let's help youth-led initiative, small association. And third, that's something that we are working also with Rural Youth Europe, is trying to develop this rural network of very small organization of young people that we live here at rural areas. And just to end, Bobby's in his previous intervention from the DG Education, he was speaking about the EU Youth Dialogue and how the priorities of the objective number 6, moving rural youth forward, was made by this ambassador of the EU Youth Dialogue. And I'm here, the EU Youth Dialogue ambassador in my village, in my region. And the other day we did this event that aimed to connect the needs of the young people that we live here in the rural areas with the European Commission. So, hey, European Commission, we need this. But we were thinking, like, if we open a normal participatory process at the rural area, just nerd people like maybe me, I love democracy, and I'm writing essays every time, and I'm thinking of philosophy, politics, everything. But it's not important, my opinion, like there is the normal and simple young people that they were born here, is how to reach them, how to connect with these young people. So we just created kind of this small party. Everyone was dancing, everyone was maybe drinking beer also. And at some point we create these small groups. So we were saying, hey, let us know what are your priorities. Let us know how can we create. And it was amazing. There were like 50 young people, and it might be the first time that they created, that they were involved in this decision-making process. So we do need to move forward to a more non-formal politics, non-formal way of political participation process. And it is the same as when the young people are not going to the educational system, and then we move forward to the non-formal education. If young people are not being involved in the decision-making process, we might need to stop being that bureaucratic and try to make these more friendly party events, whatever. So that's it. Merci.
Thank you, Matías. Indeed, as you said, there are initiatives, there are networks, but we need to join forces with policymakers. So, Hannah, for instance, can you tell us about your opinion, how to ensure that policymakers remain receptive to the insights and needs of our youth throughout the decision-making process?
Absolutely. So I think Carla, Karen, and Matías have all kind of touched upon some of the things I'm going to talk about in my response. But I think first and foremost, policymakers need to understand a few really key principles before they even think about engaging with young people. And the number one priority for me is being honest and being credible with young people. We cannot treat engagement with rural young people as a tick box exercise where they are just consulted on the policies that affect them, and they are not shown how their voices have been used to shape those policies, or they're not meaningfully engaged with right at the start of the decision making process. That also means that we have to be upfront about where rural youth can actually affect change. I think it's very easy to I think you need to be upfront with them about what they can expect to influence. I think if you lead them to believe that they can affect change where actually they aren't going to be able to affect change, they can become disenfranchised from the process, and then you risk not being able to engage with them again in the future. So that means being really open and honest in your communication. And I think as well, policymakers need to be aware that engagement with young people, especially where you want to engage more with the disadvantaged voices in our rural and island communities, that costs money and it takes time and resource. And we really need to put our trust in the youth-led organisations who are the experts in that. We are here, I think, as policymakers and as Scottish Government to facilitate, not to dictate how that engagement should look. Although that being said, I think in Scotland, we do have a few mechanisms and policies in place that do put those principles at the forefront, including helping to establish various different platforms for rural young people to engage on. So Amy's already spoken about the Scottish Rural and Islands Youth Parliament. We already have a Young Islanders network as well. And we've also been very lucky that we have an incredibly supportive Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs who, you know, having grown up in a rural area herself, is really understanding of the issues that young people face, and she's incredibly passionate about advocating for them as a minister. And I think as well, we also have some wider policies that help to facilitate that co-creation ethos of policymaking with young people. For example, things like Promise, which makes sure that care experienced young people and adults are not disadvantaged in life and they are offered the same opportunities that any child is. So it promotes that equality no matter what your background is. And also there's the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child that was recently passed as a bill in Scottish Parliament, which means that there's a duty on ministers to ensure that all of their policies have to monitor progress against the UNCRC, which you would think would happen across all policies, but having that legislation in place has already been really helpful to help foster better engagement with young people.
Thank you, Hannah. Yes, thank you for advocating for honest communication and highlighting on the importance of meaningful participation. So Carla, as you've been involved in European projects like Rural Youth Futures, what has been the process of bringing local voices to higher level of governance, such as regional, national, or EU levels?
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to start by saying that I think that one of the strategies that could work in this case is providing trainings and mentorships that I think other people mentioned before, especially for rural youth, because it can improve their skills and confidence and ability to effectively advocate for their interest and engage in governance processes. But for example, thanks to these projects that I'm working on, in which I started as an internship student, I also had the opportunity to give a talk to different partners and stakeholders that are way in a higher level than I was back then. And I also could continue my learning in the foundation as an IB volunteer. And I could receive some mentoring sessions thanks to my tutor. And that helped me to know and discover other opportunities, such as the European Youth Week, in which I participated last week. So there I could meet young people like me with similar interests and that took advantage of the opportunity of being in the European Parliament like I did. And I could discuss with them and check that these type of events are worth it for us because we become more engaged in policy making, and there are also experiences that motivate us to keep looking for more. And the other hand, I wanted to mention how the process of bringing local voices to higher levels of governance felt for me and for other young people that I worked with in these projects. To give you a bit of a context, we had the opportunity to be part of a closing event of the project in the Chamber of Spain in Brussels. And we felt excited, but we also felt that our work had a tangible result. And that although we shared the space with higher levels of governance and like different people that had a way bigger background than us and more experience, our opinion was heard and considered. So it was very meaningful for us. And I cannot describe with words how we felt after that event because we were super motivated and enthusiastic to be part of it, and also thankful for having a space in an EU level where our opinion mattered. So yeah, it was great.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you for your contribution and indeed having the space to let local organizations to share the results at higher level of governance is indeed very key. Now, the last question that I have for this panel is to Karen. Karen, how do you envision the collaboration between the European Commission and rural youth organizations to ensure that policies address the needs of rural youth effectively? If you have any mechanism for collaboration, for more inclusive policy making, some examples or tools that are available that you can share with us?
I think, first of all, it's good to hear from Clara that the European Youth Week was appreciated as a kind of a type of event to get young people engaged in policy making. So I will pass on this information to the colleagues, because we will gradually start preparing the next European Youth Week, which is in 2 years' time, and to see how to make it even with even more opportunities to engage with young people. I think at the Commission level, there are already many initiatives kind of to give EU citizens a greater say in decisions and policies. We had of course, the Conference on the Future of Europe, where rural youth, I suppose, was also actively participating. We have the European Citizens Initiative, the Better Regulation framework. But it's true that internal capacity building is still more needed in terms to ensure that there's a meaningful participation and engagement with young people, as was raised by the other panelists. And that was also one of the elements in the communication that we published. And so concrete action that we will soon set up is EU Youth Stakeholders Group. So there was a stakeholders group during the European Year of Youth, and we will now set it up to kind of facilitate with youth organizations, with representatives of member states, with discussions on youth relevant issues and on further youth mainstreaming. And so very soon we will launch a call for interest for stakeholders to participate in this platform. And we hope, of course, that key organizations representing rural youth at European level, it's for European level stakeholders, would apply for this platform. And the call will be launched on our European Youth on our European Youth portal. So for those interested, I suggest to stay tuned. Then an element on the EU Youth Dialogue process. I will not go into detail because I know Bobby spoke about it in his panel session this morning. But here again, we want to increase a bit the impact of the youth dialogue and also see how we can kind of share better the outcomes of the EU dialogue process with policymakers. So in order to do that, we are planning to kind of organize seminars to discuss certain initiatives that are currently discussed at European level during the EU Youth Conference, so that we get ideas as well of the delegates at the EU Dialogue or the EU Youth Conference on certain initiatives. And also we are in the process of nominating internal youth correspondents in each DG. So it is that each DG would have a kind of contact point on youth issues and would be responsible to address youth relevant issues in the policies and in the initiatives of this DG. And so the youth correspondents would also come together and exchange in a youth network, which will be coordinated by our EU Youth Coordinator. Then another thing, I think we noticed that in the EU Youth Dialogue process, we see young people from rural areas are well represented. We already have around 30% of participation from young people from rural areas. But here again, we kind of encourage young people or organizations representing rural youth to actively participate in these processes at regional and national level, and also to reach out to the national working groups for the EU Youth Dialogue to see how they could be further involved. And then a tip also for youth organization is that, I mean, it would be very relevant to participate in any opportunities they see or initiatives at EU level to make their voices heard.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Well, you said taking the space. And I wanted to thank all of you, Matías, Carla, Hannah, and Karen, for your contribution. I found this discussion very inspiring. Thank you for your honesty and sharing about your experience, your ideas. I hope that the participants of this webinar enjoyed it as much as I did. I am very sorry that we took a little time from the breakout room, but I hope that you all enjoyed it very much, and that you will now move to the breakout with some ideas that can feed in the discussions that we'll have now.